Good morning. How are you? Sorry, the time got away from me. I was doing some work on the computer and I just realized, hey, I'm supposed to be going live. So here I am. Hi, I'm Anna Walker, otherwise known as FELTit. And today we're going to talk about how do you know when you're done. So I'm going to use a felt painting that I've been working on, and I stepped away from it for about a week, and I'm coming back to it with you today, and we're going to take a look at it together because I think I'm done. So when I look at this felt painting, the last thing I did, I'm going to try and move this here, the last thing I did was redo the moon because I really didn't like the way it looked. For some reason it just wasn't looking right. It was too small, it was too rounded, so I pulled it off. That is the wonderful thing about needle felting, is that until you decide to frame something, you know, you can do whatever you want with it. I'm going to turn on another light here. See if we can get a nice balance of light coming from two different sources. There we go. So when I started this painting, I started it because I wanted to play with the colors on this felted wool, this over-dyed felted wool that I had purchased. And I wanted to sort of do a tonal piece, keeping it all in one area of the color wheel. And so I made sure that I was working with deep purples and indigos and deep blues. The only contrast from that is the little bit of white that's on here and in the white caps on the water, and the tiny little bits of white that showed up with the locks in lighter areas where I added them for some texture. And as I look at this, I'm thinking that I'm done because I like the delineation that I've got between the brightly lit areas and the darker shadowed areas. I think the only thing I might do is take a look at this ridge right here because it seems a little straight to me. This side has got a little bit of contours going on, and that's how you would think of a mountain being, but this line almost comes too straight down from the top, so I think I need to play with this just a little bit. But aside from that, I think I'm done. I had wondered about adding extra clouds, but I don't know that I need that. And I've got a tiny little bit of sparkle from the Angelina fiber that I used that I think is working nicely. I think that the textural aspect of what I did here for the moon is a lot better than what we had before. And I got that textural aspect by pulling some fibers that you don't generally think about felting with, because especially wet felting, needle felting, you can get away with it because needle felting you can use any kind of fibers. But I had used all wool fibers before and it came together really cohesively. When you look at the moon at night, when you've got a beautiful night sky, it's clear, you see the moon, you see a little bit of the texture of the craters and the shadowed areas in the moon, and I wanted that to come through, and it didn't the first time. But this second time, I think it came through quite nicely. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see the dimension here very easily. Oh, there we go. Now we're seeing it. I used some cotton fiber that I had, and cotton doesn't like to needle felt very easily. It sort of grabs hold of the needle and doesn't want to let go, but it allows for some nice contouring to show up, some nice texture to show up when you allow it to be fluffy like it wants to be. So I really like the way my reimagined moon works on here. The other textures that we've got in here are from locks. I used some dyed locks that I had purchased, and you'll see that there's some pink areas, there's little blue areas. All of those are just by opening up a couple of the locks. I'm just going to open one up and let you know what it looks like when you do that. When you work with locks, you're opening them up along the length. You're not opening them up by pulling from one end to the other end. You're opening them up by just loosening up those curls. It's like somebody had a hair wash and they didn't use conditioner and you're trying to untangle it a little bit. It's kind of what working with locks is like. But we don't want to smooth out those curls. We just want to spread out those curls so that we have that beautiful texture and dimension going on there. And when you add something like locks to a felted painting, to a felted vessel, to a felted anything, you get an amazing amount of texture and bounce in the fibers and in your item. I have used locks a great deal for doing things like leafy bits around the stem of a pumpkin, or for adding hair to a gnome or a creature, or even a human figure. But you can see how much texture you can get just by using the locks and opening them up. I'm going to lay it up here on the sky so that you can see it a little bit. I mean, it just gives you some beautiful dimension. And when you add that and you needle felt that into a painting, whether, you know, we're not adding to this painting, obviously, but if, you know, I had flowers coming up, this works beautifully for flowers. Let's see, I didn't use locks for that. I didn't use locks for that. Okay, so sorry, I got distracted trying to find a sample of using locks, but it just gives you some beautiful dimension, some beautiful qualities that can add some texture. The other part of the texture that I got was from the silk that I was using, and this is silk lap that I purchased. The lap is just a different form of how you can purchase silk. You can purchase silk in roving form like you do with fiber, but you can also get silk in hanky form, where they've taken the silk cocoon apart and they've opened it up and they've stretched it over a square frame, and then they add, I mean, just dozens and dozens and dozens on top of that. And that's a hanky, and you can use the hanky format. But the silk lap I really like because it gives you this lovely texture that very definitely translated quite well for the water and the white caps in this particular painting. So when it comes to, are you done? My answer for you is walk away from it. Step away from it. Take a break from, because you get so focused on, okay, I need to do this here. I need to do this here. I need to add here. I need to, and by stepping away from this particular felt painting for a week, I know that I'm done except for this straight line here. This straight line is not natural looking, so I'm going to change that and add a little bit of contouring by adding some lighter fibers in here. And let's see if I've got those lighter fibers that I can work with. And I'll just do that while we're here on the call, because that's what you came here for, right? You want to see how this all happens. I'm just going to put the brush underneath. And what I used were locks. I just need to find the right color. And you see what happens when you pull it apart. You get that beautiful fluff. I'm going to see if we can use that lock right there to give us a little bit of texture to just come in. I'm going to trim this off right here. Yes, you can cut your fibers. I have been told that by two of my felting heroes, and if they say it's okay to trim fibers with scissors, then I say it's okay to trim fibers with scissors. I'm going to flip over. I'm not going to use my little square because it's just not big enough. This works a whole lot easier on here, and it'll give me an opportunity to play a little bit with where I want these fibers to come in. You don't want anything too terribly straight. You just want to have some contour, and that's where you can let the locks do the work for you in getting you some of that contour. And now all I need is a needle. I've got one right here. If I can pull it out of the hat. I'm just going to anchor this here at the top. And then I'm going to anchor the fibers in different places and see if I like it. Now realize I'm looking at this upside down. You guys are seeing it straight up and down as I'm doing this. And again, I am not doing a regular felting here. I'm just sort of playing and exploring by tacking it down in a couple of places so that I can see what this is going to look like here. And it helps to look at it. I mean, I'm tilting this up so that I can see it in the camera, and I'm kind of liking what we're getting here, but I think I want to accent. Oh, there we go. I think that is going to work quite nicely. I mean, when you look at mountains, you see the different ridges and such as someone would be climbing them, and they're never straight. And I think we've got exactly what I want here. So now that I've got it tacked into place, if I didn't like it, I'd just lift it up and move it over. But now that I've got it tacked into place, now I'm going to give it a nice felting in. And then I can actually say that this painting is complete. And again, I'm not going to flatten out anything that I don't have to flatten out. I can tease things down along so it doesn't look so abrupt. And it's just a matter of working this in so that you've got it nicely felted. And we know it's well felted. I have a different opinion than some felt and fiber artists. I do not like to have my pieces behind glass for a number of reasons, but the most important reason, for me anyway, is that you lose the tactile nature of the fiber art when you put a felt painting behind glass. So I like to mount my pieces to a canvas where they're just stapled onto the canvas, not behind glass at all. And that way, if a person desired when they saw it, they could reach up and they could feel the texture very gently with their fingertips. Now, does that worry me that they might pull something loose? No, because I firmly felt all of my felt paintings. I make sure that those fibers are not going to go anywhere, and I, do my job, as far as I'm concerned anyway. I do my job right in getting the piece so that it can be touched very gently. And that way folks can feel the texture, because the texture is part of what makes this art form so incredible as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the texture of the moon with the cotton in there is so much different than the texture of the silk lap down here, which is, again, much different than the locks that were used here on the mountains, and even more different than the Angelina fiber here. So if you remove their ability, a person's ability to be able to feel that texture, then you remove part of the art. So I will work this just a little bit more just to make sure that it is nicely felted in there, but I wanted to give you an idea of what you would be looking for, and I know that the fibers are going through because they're coming right off, but I wanted to give you an idea of what to look for when you're creating a piece of felt, especially a felted painting. How do you know when it's done? Well, I'm going to mount this one, and I think that it is about done. I think just a little bit more work here with the needle I'm just sort of imagining this attached to a canvas, and I think this piece is done. And my son has already named it. He came up to take a look at this. My late husband loved the podcast Night Vale, and apparently this is definitely in keeping with the colors of Night Vale. So this piece is going to be called Night Vale, and I'll be finishing it up, and that's all I've got for today. Have a great weekend. I hope to see you on Monday at 10 o'clock, and we will talk soon. Over the weekend, go felt something. And yes, I know that Monday is a holiday, but I'm still going to be here because, you know, those of us that work for ourselves, there's no such thing as holidays. So I'll bring something to you, not sure what at this point in time, but I will come and join you, and maybe I'll have this complete and on a canvas so that you can see the finished result. I'll talk to you all later. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be healthy, be happy.